The thing in the cornfield. Some places are meant to be empty. Some places are not meant to be disturbed. And some places watch you back. This is the story of a cornfield in Nebraska, where the wind never quite sounds right and where something still waits among the stalks. The Whispering Fields. Out in the middle of nowhere, in rural Nebraska, there's a stretch of farmland that has been abandoned for decades. The locals won't talk about it. If you ask for directions, people will shake their heads and change the subject. No one goes there, not anymore. The land once belonged to the Hargrove family back in the early 1900s. They grew corn, lived quietly, kept to themselves. Then one summer, they disappeared. No trace, no explanation, just empty fields and silence. Years later, people tried to farm the land again, but the crops never grew right. They twisted, warped, the stalks turned a sickly yellow, even when the soil tested healthy. And then, the disappearances started again. No one stays there now. No one even drives past at night. But some people, those looking for trouble, they still go in. The bet Derek and his friends were bored teenagers, the kind who didn't believe in ghost stories, who thought urban legends were just made-up nonsense. So when they heard about the Hargrove cornfield, they did what any reckless group of teens would do. They made a bet. The challenge? Walk into the field at midnight, make it to the center, and take a picture. Easy, or at least that's what they thought. Into the stalks. The air was too still that night. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just silence. Derek and his two friends, Mike and Jordan, stood at the edge of the abandoned farm, staring at the endless rows of dried, brittle corn stalks. Something about them seemed off. They weren't swaying in the breeze like normal plants. They were leaning, like they were listening. Mike laughed, snapping a picture with his phone. "All right, let's do this before we chicken out." The three of them stepped inside, and the moment they did, the wind stopped. The maze that moves. At first, everything seemed normal. The dried husks crackled under their boots, and their flashlights cut narrow beams through the darkness. Then, after about 10 minutes of walking, Derek noticed something strange. The path behind them, it was gone. The way they came in should have been right there, but all he saw were walls of corn stretching endlessly in every direction. "We just took a straight path," Jordan said, his voice uneasy. "How the hell?" The corn shifted. Not from the wind, it moved on its own, like the field was breathing. That's when they heard it, the whispering. Faint at first, like 100 voices speaking all at once, just beneath the wind. Then, a footstep. Not one of theirs. Something heavy, something big, and it was coming toward them. The thing in the corn, Derek grabbed his friends and ran. They sprinted through the rows, pushing past stalks that felt too solid, too strong. Then, Jordan screamed. Derek turned, and for a split second, in the light of his flashlight, he saw it. Not a man, not an animal, something tall, thin, wrapped in dried husks and tangled roots. It had no eyes, just a mouth, grinning too wide, filled with rows of jagged teeth. And worse, it was standing where Jordan had been. Derek and Mike ran faster than they ever had in their lives. The whispering grew louder, like the whole field was alive, calling to them. Then, a break in the stalks. A road, their car. They burst out of the field, panting, turning to look behind them. Nothing. No sign of Jordan, no sign of the thing. Just corn, silent, still, waiting. The final picture. They called the police. The search lasted a week. Jordan was never found. But the sheriff did find something else. Lying in the dirt just past the edge of the field. A phone. Jordan's phone. It had one new picture on it. Blurry, distorted, but clear enough. Rows of corn stretching up into the sky, and just beneath the shadows, a face, grinning, watching, waiting. The whispering never stops. Derek left town. He never talked about what happened that night. But the Hargrove field is still there, still waiting. And sometimes when the wind is just right, people swear they hear whispering. If you ever find yourself driving down a lonely road, and you see a cornfield that looks too still, too quiet, don't stop. Because some things in the dark are always hungry. That's tonight's story. If you ever heard strange whispers in the middle of nowhere, maybe you weren't alone. If you like this story, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more terrifying tales. And let me know in the comments, have you ever seen something in the fields that wasn't supposed to be there? Until next time, sleep well. The reflection that wasn't me. Some mirrors show the past. Some mirrors reveal things you don't want to see. And some mirrors don't let you leave. This is the story of a mirror in an old motel in Tennessee, where travelers check in for the night, but their reflections stay forever. The Forgotten Motel. Just off Highway 76, deep in the rolling countryside of Tennessee, there's a forgotten motel that hasn't been in business for decades. The sign out front is faded, the parking lot is cracked with weeds, the windows are covered in dust and grime. But sometimes, late at night, a single light flickers on. Locals say, if you see that light, keep driving. Because if you stop, if you step inside, you might not leave alone. The man in room 12, nobody knows who built the motel. No one remembers when it first opened. But there's one story that has been passed down for years. Back in the 1970s, a man checked into room 12, a salesman passing through town on his way to Nashville. He was never seen again. The cleaning lady found his luggage, his wallet, his car keys. Everything was there, everything except him. The police searched the room, but there was no sign of a struggle. No fingerprints, no blood, no forced entry. It was as if he had simply vanished. The only thing out of place was the mirror. Someone had scratched words into the glass. Don't look too long. The Dare Marcus had never heard the story before. He was just passing through Tennessee, heading back to Florida after visiting family. He'd been driving for 8 hours straight when he spotted the old motel. It was raining. He was exhausted. His gas tank was nearly empty. So against his better judgment, he pulled in. The office was empty, but the door was unlocked. A bell rang when he stepped inside, and a woman's voice called from the back room. "You need a room?" Marcus turned. Behind the counter, an old woman stood in the shadows. Her face was hard to see, but her eyes were sharp. Yeah," he said. "Just for the night." She slid a key across the counter. Room 12. Marcus took it, paid in cash. Didn't ask why the motel looked abandoned. He should have. The mirror. The room was small, cold. The air smelled stale, like it hadn't been aired out in years. The bed was stiff, the carpet was faded, the wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips. And then there was the mirror. It covered almost the entire wall across from the bed, old, tarnished, and scratched into the bottom corner. "Don't look too long." Marcus smirked. Urban legend nonsense, he thought. He tossed his bag onto the bed, kicked off his boots, and lay down. And that's when he noticed it, his reflection. It was a second too slow. When he blinked, it blinked just after him. When he moved his hand, it lagged behind. His breath caught in his throat. "Just tired," he muttered. "I'm seeing things." Then, his reflection smiled. Marcus hadn't. Trapped in the glass, his stomach dropped. He shot upright, heart pounding, staring at the mirror. His reflection looked normal again. But now, the room behind it looked different. The wallpaper was new. The bed was made. The carpet was clean, like the room and the reflection was stuck in the past. Marcus stood slowly, moved closer to the mirror. His reflection followed. Then, a shadow passed behind it. Inside the glass, Marcus spun around. Nothing was there. His hands turned ice cold, and then his reflection stepped forward. Not Marcus. The other him. It pressed against the glass from the other side, smiling, waiting. Then, it reached out, and Marcus felt fingers wrap around his wrist. The escape, he yanked away. The light flickered. The air grew thick. The reflection mouthed words. "Let me out." Marcus didn't stop to think. He grabbed his bag, bolted for the door. The mirror rattled behind him. His reflection's face was warped, stretched, screaming. The door handle wouldn't turn. Then, a whisper. So close it felt like it was in his ear. "Don't leave me here." Marcus slammed his shoulder against the door. Once, twice, and then it burst open. He stumbled into the hallway. The motel was dark now, silent. He ran, didn't look back, didn't stop. And when he reached his car, the motel was gone. No neon sign, no parking lot, just an empty field. Like the place had never been there at all. The last reflection, Marcus never spoke about that night. But weeks later, when he was back home, he saw something on his phone. A picture. He didn't remember taking it. But there it was, a blurry photo of a mirror. And standing inside it was him, not a reflection. Not a trick of the light. Him, staring, smiling, waiting. The warning, the forgotten motel is still out there, still waiting for the next traveler. So if you ever find yourself on a long stretch of highway, exhausted, looking for a place to rest, and you see an old motel half hidden in the fog, keep driving. Because if you stay the night and you look too long in the mirror, you might not be the one who walks away. That's tonight's story. If you ever looked into a mirror and saw something wrong, maybe it was never just your imagination. If you like this story, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more terrifying tales. And let me know in the comments. Have you ever seen something in the mirror that wasn't supposed to be there? Until next time, sleep well. The Haunted Hotel, what they don't want you to know. Some hotels offer comfort, some hotels offer luxury, and some hotels offer something else entirely. This is the story of the Briarwood Hotel in Colorado, a place where guests check in, but not all of them check out. The hotel that shouldn't exist. It started as Rumors, a small roadside hotel tucked away off Highway 34, just outside of Fort Collins, Colorado. No billboards, no advertisements, just a flickering vacancy sign glowing dimly through the trees. Locals said the hotel didn't exist on official maps, but travelers swore they'd stayed there, and that's when the stories began. Kara's last stop. In October 2019, Kara Reynolds, a 28-year-old nurse from Denver, was driving home after visiting her parents in Wyoming. It was late. She was tired. So when she saw the Briarwood Hotel, a small 2-story building with faded green shutters, it seemed perfect. She pulled in, parked under the flickering sign, and stepped inside. The lobby was empty, except for an old man behind the desk. His skin was pale, almost gray, like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. Without looking up, he slid a rusty key across the counter. "Room 304. You'll be the only guest tonight," he muttered. Kara should have left right then, but she didn't. Room 304, the room that watches you. The room was cold, despite the heater buzzing in the corner. The bed was perfectly made, but the pillows had an indentation, like someone had just been lying there. And the window, it faced the parking lot. But the glass was so dirty, Kara could barely see her car. Still, she was exhausted. She locked the door, tossed her bag on the chair, and fell asleep fully clothed. And at 2:13 a.m., she woke up to whispering, "We told you not to stay." Kara blinked, heart pounding. The whispers were soft, like someone was speaking right beside her ear. She reached for her phone, but it was gone. Then she saw it, the closet door. It was open, just a crack, but she had closed it before bed. "Kara?" Her blood ran cold. The voice knew her name. Panicking, she flipped on the lamp, and the light flickered, casting shadows across the room. In the corner, a figure, tall, faceless, arms too long, fingers stretched like twisting roots, and it was smiling. The escape that never happened. Kara didn't scream. She bolted, yanked the door open, sprinted down the hallway, but the hallway never ended. Door after door, all 304, all locked. Behind her, the whispers grew louder. "You shouldn't have stayed." Her breath hitched. She slammed her fists against the wall, and suddenly, silence. The hallway was gone. She was back in the room, and the closet door was wide open. They found her car, but not Kara. The next morning, a highway patrol officer noticed Kara's car still sitting outside the Briarwood Hotel. He pulled into the lot, but the hotel? It was abandoned. Boards across the windows, dust covering the sign, no guests, no old man at the desk, just Kara's phone lying face up on the hood of her car. And on the screen, a single photo, the inside of room 304, with Kara standing in the mirror and someone standing behind her. The hotel that moves after Kara's disappearance. People started talking. The Briarwood Hotel doesn't stay in one place. Sometimes it appears on Highway 34, other times on Route 6 near Utah. But one thing never changes. Room 304 is always waiting. And if you check in, you might never check out. That's tonight's story. If you ever see a hotel with no name, no cars, and a flickering vacancy sign, keep driving. Because once you step inside, you might never leave. If you like this story, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you spend the night in an empty hotel if you were desperate? Until next time, sleep well.